So in this video, we're going to look at some of the introductory thoughts that are presented in Chapter 1. Now, this is just about bringing up some almost like some little tidbits that I think it's worthwhile that we just kind of have a little think about before we go steaming off into the course. So let's hop into here. Now, since we're doing human biology, let's accept that, that we're dealing with living organisms. And when we're talking about, what is living, that could turn into a huge philosophical debate. But really, what we're looking at are things that are made of cells, either individual cells or, in terms of the case of humans, multicellular, and also humans are not just the cells, but the products of the cells and the interactions of the cells and the physiology of the cells that make up us. And we're not going to spend much time on this, but yeah, cells, I think we'll say for this argument's sake, are the basic unit of life. And of course, another feature that we tend to see is metabolism. And of course, that gets us into the realm of chemical reactions that are used to sustain life. Now, so this is about breaking things down, reforming things, storing energy in bonds, releasing energy to allow for metabolism to occur. Now, also, growth is often implicated when we talk about living things. So growth comes in two forms. One is you could take a cell and divide it and make more cells. Or the other way is you could take an individual cell and make it bigger. So there's different forms of growth, and often they're not mutually exclusive. That cells, sometime in their life cycle or life history, have both features to them. Also, excretion. We talk about elimination, that if you're going to have metabolism occur, you're going to have metabolic wastes. So you're going to need some way to get rid of them so you don't have buildup. And also some ability to respond to changes internally, the internal environment or the external environment. So things like responsiveness are part of typically what we consider sort of the catch-all tick marks that make up something that is living. Movement. Sure. Movement of the entire organism, individual cells, material in and out of the cells of the organism. All of those you could potentially consider part of the experience of a living entity. Reproduction. And of course, when we're looking at reproduction, there's different types of reproduction. If we're just looking at sexual reproduction versus asexual reproduction. Or individual cells reproduce during growth and replace themselves because of loss. Things like red blood cells are continuously made. They live for X amount of time, exist, and then they're broken down and they have to be replaced. And of course, organisms themselves reproduce. So those are just some basic thoughts around there. Now, when we're talking about levels of organization, and this sort of follows the general gist of this course, or the flow of this course, is that we're going to start off looking at chemicals, right? And a lot of people go, oh, why are we looking at basic chemicals? Because, things like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, they all interact to form larger molecules or interact with each other. And of course, we're a cellular-based individual. So we're going to start looking at things like cells. And so the cellular level, groups of many different molecules combined in specific ways to form cellular structures. As you move up, and this is, as I said, this is really the flow we're going to follow in the first half of this semester, is that we're really going from chemicals to cells, to tissues. Now, when we start getting into tissues, we'll break down and look at the different categories of tissues and what's unique about each one, and sort of, the form and function where one tissue exists versus the other one. But when we're looking at tissue, we're looking at two or more cell types, typically with a common function. And one of the big hallmarks of a tissue is that, yeah, you have cells that are in that tissue, but the cells make stuff. I know that's not very scientific-y, but they make stuff, which becomes part of that tissue, and that is the extracellular matrix. Now, that varies from tissue to tissue. Once we get into the histology chapter, we'll be looking at some of these. And sometimes the tissues organize themselves in different ways and different structures, so we can end up with membrane sheaths that cover body cavities, etc. And then when you move further up, you end up at the level of organs. So we've gone from chemicals to cells interacting and making stuff to form tissues. And now when I have two or more tissue types, they combine and form an organ. And really when we're looking at organs, they have a recognizable shape and they perform a specialized task. And you can think up off the top of your head a number of organ systems, right? The kidneys, the heart, etc. And then from there, we often combine organs. So organs become part of a system. So two or more organs work together to carry out a common function or functions that are related. And of course, here's some examples. The cardiovascular system and the digestive system would be two examples. And then once we put together all the organ systems, of course, it goes from chemicals to cells to tissues, and tissues make up organs, and organs become part of organ systems, and a whole bunch of organ systems working together. Voila, my friends. Hopefully, or we think it should be us, right? So we have the level of the whole individual, us, right? So, as we said, we did sort of this walkthrough that, we start with chemicals, then cellular, bunch of cells come together with their products. We get tissue. A number of tissues come together to form an organ. And the related organs functioning for a common purpose becomes an organ system, and then we have us. So that is kind of a quick look at sort of that hierarchy. And many people recognize that we have about 11 organ systems within humans. Okay, so we're going to leave it right there, and we'll pick up some more of Chapter 1 in the next video.